Good evening and welcome to the public meeting for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications for 41 Livingston Avenue. Before we begin, I would like to provide the land acknowledgement. Niagara Region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations such as the Hattaway-Wendoronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and the town of Grimsby stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship on the lands on which we live. The premise of this public meeting is to provide the opportunity for the public to provide input on the proposed application. I would like to stress that there have been no decisions or recommendations made by council or planning staff on these applications. This meeting is conducted in accordance with the town's procedural bylaw. All participants are asked to connect themselves with decorum and respect and provide the opportunity for all members of the public to express their opinion in an environment of tolerance on all points of view and free of intimidation. The intent is to create a venue to encourage people to participate in the process and provide their input. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Town of Grimsby to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Grimsby before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Grimsby before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. With us this evening is Ryan Ferrari, AJ Clark and Associates Limited, and Kathy Turner, Community Living. Planning staff in attendance, Adam Gignac, planner, and Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planning, and Matt Bruner is here as well. Tonight we will start with the staff providing a brief presentation outlining the process and the application. Next, the consultant team will provide an overview of the proposal, and that will be followed by an opportunity for you to ask questions. If you have not already done so, please ensure you have signed in so you will be informed of future meetings on this proposal. As we navigate the virtual public meeting, we ask, it's the wrong one. It's not the right one, right? No. So each presenter may speak only once. If you hear your comment presented by someone else, please do not duplicate the remarks. All of the comments are being recorded and will be taken into consideration. When you are called, we ask that you state your name and address. Persons addressing council should confine their remarks to the business at hand and shall direct their comments to the questions to the chair. Staff are taking notes of all the questions asked this evening. At the end of the delegations, the consultant will be asked to respond to all the questions and comments raised. If you feel your questions have not been responded to this evening, you can email our planning department at planning@grimsby.ca. Adam, we're ready for your presentation now. Good evening.
Perfect. Thanks, Katie. So good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Gignac. I'm one of the planners with the town. Just wanted to thank you all for coming out tonight. So tonight we'll be discussing proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications for 41 Livingston Avenue. Next slide, please. Just to begin this meeting, I'll be going through this brief presentation, just going into some insight on the planning process and briefly introducing what's being proposed for the site. We have Ryan Ferrari here from AJ Clark and Associates who will provide some greater details and address some of the comments that were brought up at the open house and we're also here to ask or answer any questions that you guys might have about the project at this moment. Next slide, please. So just to go over the purpose of the meeting tonight, we would like to provide you all with an overview of the planning process from start to finish. So this includes the process from where we are in the process, an overview of the policy and regulatory framework, including some of the relevant official plan policies, and agency and public feedback will be provided and touched upon. So Mr. Ferrari will provide you with some of the additional details about the proposal. And finally, we're here to answer, again, any questions you may have and gather additional feedback on these applications. So all this feedback would be taken into consideration and identify any potential revisions that might be needed. Next slide, please. Yep, so why can plans or bylaws change? So under the Planning Act, the authority is provided to submit applications for development plans that may not meet the official plan or the zoning bylaw. The town's role is to process these applications that come in. These applications are only able to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw if it is determined that the proposed changes comply with the overall intent of the official plan, and the result of these changes is a development that is compatible with the surrounding area. Next slide, please. So this is just a flow chart that outlines the process from start to finish, including where we are in this process. So for the zoning bylaw amendment and the official plan amendment applications, it began with a pre-consultation meeting with town staff, relevant agencies that would be reviewing the application. So this includes the region of Niagara as an example. And it outlines all of the submittal requirements, that pre-consultation meeting, that the applicants were required to submit. So once an application is ready, the applicants submit the documents and the fees to the town, and the town to review for completion. And upon complete application, the notice is sent out and agencies are asked for comments. Comments have been provided for the first submission of this proposal. They were listed in the information report. The public was also able to provide comments as soon as the application was deemed complete. For this application, any documents related to the proposal are posted on the current planning applications page of the town's website. And all notices for public meetings are posted at this location too. So just so for some history, some open house was had for these applications back on January 30th, 2023. So we are currently at the public meeting stage, which provides another opportunity for comments to be made about the application. So at this stage, the initial agency and public comments have been made, with revisions potentially being needed following the public meeting. Any revision would be made to the application to address concerns from agencies, town staff, or members of the public. And after the public meeting, if all the concerns about the proposal are believed to have been met, staff will prepare a recommendation report to bring to the planning committee regarding the application. And a decision on the application would be made at a future council meeting after that, with the opportunity to appeal the decision afterwards. So the planning process is an open process. It does allow the public to have a say. So this public meeting is just one of those opportunities for people to give their opinions on the application. Additionally, you can write a letter or email addressed to the planning department to provide comments. And this email is planning@grimsby.ca. You can also send a copy of your letter or email to your counselors as an alternative. The public meeting is not the last opportunity to provide comments. Comments will continue to be accepted until the staff recommendation report is prepared. Next slide, please. To stay informed about this application, you're invited to provide your mailing address. This is how you would get any notice on future meetings, information on how to obtain a staff report, speaking in front of the committee, and how to appeal an application once a decision has been made. Next slide, please. So just to briefly introduce the proposal, this slide shows the proposed site plan for 41 Livingston Avenue. From the open house, there have been some minor changes to the proposal. I'll let Ryan go over some of those changes in greater detail. So the proposal is for a 2.5-story structure containing 5 assisted living residential units with ground floor activity and office space. So the associated parking of 9 total spaces is in the rear of the property with access off of Kidd Avenue. Next slide, please. So with the open house and the first submission review complete, some comments have been made about the proposed applications. The first 2 of which were made at the open house here. So the first of which was in regards to traffic, which was brought up. A lot of the concern with the traffic was associated with the Livingston and Kidd Avenue intersection, with concern of vehicles making left-hand turns out of the plaza onto Livingston Avenue as an example. Additionally, at the open house, parking was brought up as a potential concern In relation, as staff have been utilizing the parking lot across the street for staff parking for this, the current site as well. And then one additional comment that was brought up by planning staff as part of our initial review. We wish to meet with the applicant team following the open house, just to better identify and define the use that is proposed on the property. So the name of the use was decided upon is the Facility for Specialized Housing Needs. Definition of this use is included in the draft bylaw attached to the information report, and I'll be going over it in a second. So just to begin with the official plan amendment, when evaluating applications for an official plan amendment, numerous policies are considered. So under section 1.43 of the official plan, it is intended that the official plan may only be amended with substantial evidence to justify such an amendment based on good planning. To determine whether an amendment is appropriate, regard shall be had to numerous sections of the official plan, including section 2.0 on the vision and municipal structures, goals and objectives, land use categories in section 3.0, and the implementation of policies found in section 9.0, among other policies. So the official plan currently designates 41 Livingston Avenue as low-density residential area. The policies for this designation are located in section 342 of the official plan. So this designation permits a mixture of residential uses, more single-detached and semi-detached dwellings, community facilities, and group homes. It's considered a stable residential area, but it does allow for limited development, evolution, and rejuvenation. So the proposal for the official plan amendment aims to designate the subject lands to medium-density residential area with further modifications as well. The policies for this designation are in section 343 of the official plan, and this designation permits a variety of uses, more so the medium-density residential types of uses, such as townhomes and ground-related housing, low-rise apartments, and group homes. Next slide, please. So the current zoning on the property is residential detached 2 or RD 225, with the 25 representing the maximum permitted lot coverage. Site-specific policy 183 is also in effect on the subject site, which permits the Education Resource Center as a permitted use on the property. So just to go over the zoning, the proposed zoning on the property are modifications to the RD 225 zone, to permit the Education Resource Center on the ground floor, to permit the aforementioned Facility for Specialized Housing Needs use, and to have modifications for a variety of things, including parking requirements, accessible parking stall size, the maximum number of units in a group home, the ground floor height, and the minimum interior side yard. And as a part of the zoning bylaw amendment proposal, repeal of site-specific policy 183, as this would serve as a replacement to that. And just to, again, go over the use of Facility for Specialized Housing Needs, we worked on a definition with the applicants, which is any housing, including dedicated facilities in whole or in part, that is used by people who have specific needs beyond economic needs, including but not limited to needs such as mobility requirements or support functions required for daily living. The facility may have accessory offices that are subordinate to the primary use. So this was just necessary to better define the use that was being proposed for the site, as the original use was defined as a group home, which didn't exactly fit in with the definition of a group home. This just better defines it. Thank you.
Up next, we have Ryan Ferrari with his presentation. Good evening, Ryan.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilors. First, can everyone hear me and see me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I will go ahead and share my screen before I start. Okay, and everyone can see the screen now?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Okay, good evening, Mayor and Councilors and staff in attendance. For those who don't know, my name is Ryan Ferrari. I'm a registered professional planner with AJ Clark & Associates. I'm also the agent on this official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application. I also have with me today Kathy Turner, who is the Executive Director of Community Living. She won't be making a presentation today. However, she will be available in case there are any operational questions about what we're proposing here. So I will go through my presentation very briefly. I think Adam covered a lot. But the first thing I wanted to start with was just sort of an idea of where we're at in terms of timelines. So as some of you may recall, on January the 30th, we held an open house where we were in attendance to speak to the proposal. And as Adam noted, on February 10th, we had a follow-up meeting with staff. The purpose of the follow-up meeting was just to go through comments that we received from other municipal and regional staff, as well as deal with the new definition we're proposing for this development. And then as a result of that meeting, we made a resubmission on March the 2nd, and now we're at this public meeting. And maybe I'll just take one quick second to note that we really do appreciate staff quickly processing this application and being so helpful so far. So I won't spend too much time on the context, but the property we're talking about is at 41 Livingston Avenue. Just quickly, this is the property in question at 41 Livingston. The existing use today is effectively a resource center for community living. No one currently lives there. It's used as sort of a recreational space or a meeting space for community living, and they hold certain activities for the people they serve. Just really quickly, we're looking at Kidd Avenue in this photo. I just want to highlight for everyone in attendance today that across the street we have either a duplex or a triplex dwelling across the street. We can't confirm, but just beside that, that dwelling is a fourplex, which exists right across the street from the subject property. And then I also wanted to provide this image. This is Kidd Avenue again. You can see the single detached dwellings beside the subject property, and to the left side of this picture is just the existing parking area, which is proposed to be configured, and an accessory structure proposed to be demolished. Very quickly, I just want to remind everyone what we're proposing here. So what we're proposing is a 2.5-story tall facility for specialized housing needs, which will contain 5 residential housing units for adults living with physical or mental disabilities. In addition, on the ground floor, we will continue that sort of support function, like that is already there today. So, you know, your activities, your communal spaces, things of that nature. There's also featured a private outdoor amenity area. And again, we still are proposing 9 parking spaces. I will go over some of these items in greater detail as we go along. So the first thing I wanted to present, and Adam touched on this, is we did revise our site plan a little bit. Highlighted in green there is a landscape strip between our property and the subject properties around us. We decided to make that buffer a little bit bigger because we know that should this application be approved, we will need some room for drainage. And what we've sort of honed in on was a 0.9 setback here to accommodate that. And highlighted in red is a space where a previous accessory structure was proposed. We looked at this internally and decided we didn't need it. Instead, we'd rather use this space for potentially planting of a mature tree, or perhaps a small accessory structure, the type you kind of get at Home Depot, just for incidental storage and that. But otherwise, the proposal remains the same. The building is still the same size. The setbacks are still the same, and the parking area is also still the same. So just quickly on the changes we're speaking, I know Adam spoke to this quickly. We're seeking an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment. The official plan amendment will redesignate the lands to medium density, which will effectively permit a facility for specialized housing needs. In addition, we are still proposing the 9 spaces to support the use. And quickly, I know Adam went over the definition of what a facility for specialized housing needs is. I do just want to highlight for everyone in attendance today that this definition was not made up. It actually comes directly from the Niagara Regional Official Plan. And so we copied that sort of use as it's permitted everywhere in the region and decided to insert it into the zoning bylaw. This does a couple things, actually. The nice thing is whereas before we sort of proposed to cap the use at 5 units, now we're still proposing 5 residential units with this proposal. However, what this definition allows us to do is to control for the size of the building. So the building, if approved, would never get any bigger. However, if community living's needs change, if they wanted to add in a residential unit at some point in the future, they would just go in and get their building permit. So long they're not making exterior changes, they would be allowed to do that. Now, with that said, we're still keeping it at 5 units for now, but this is just to give community living a little bit of flexibility as their needs change in the future. And so now I'll just briefly go over some of the comments we received from staff and at the open house. We did receive a lot of good feedback that we consider, and I just want to quickly respond to them. So as I just noted, we heard a comment about implementing more than 5 units. So at this time, we're going to keep it at 5. And like I said, given the definition and the way we are capping the size of the building through the zoning bylaw, they won't be able to get any bigger. However, they'll have some flexibility in terms of conversion. Maybe a unit goes in the basement, or even if they need to lose a unit for whatever reason, that could happen potentially as well. The other issue that was brought up a lot was traffic. And this is something we looked into and staff looked into as well. We did receive comments from Public Works staff on this proposal. Public Works staff did not request a traffic study. In their opinion, our proposed use is not going to exacerbate any traffic issues that may or may not exist. And in addition, staff reviewed this proposal initially at the pre-consultation stage and still didn't ask for a traffic study. So we're aware of potential traffic issues at the intersection. However, we don't feel that this use being introduced into the neighborhood will further exacerbate the issue. And the last maybe major comment we got from the open house was the parking. So the 9 parking spaces we show on site, this is determined by community living. The reason why it's determined by community living is because there's no definition for a facility for supportive housing needs in the bylaw. And so there isn't really a parking rate that we can go by. So the reason why we're proposing 9 parking spaces is because we feel that our community living is certain that 9 parking spaces will meet their day-to-day needs. Now, just to expand upon that a little bit, at the open house, I think it was said that approximately 10 staff were going to be needed to facilitate this use. And what we mean by that is support staff, facility staff. People living there won't necessarily have any cars. But what I want to get across is that community living has very flexible office arrangements. I'll show you a slide where the different offices are. And the operation of the building is not like an office where someone comes in at 9 and everyone leaves at 5. It's very much variable because community living has people that they service who live in their own homes or other facilities around. So people are always flexible about where they need to go. Sometimes staff won't even arrive at this facility in a given day. So that's why we're proposing 9 parking spaces. The other thing that was mentioned at the open house, which I wanted to address, was staff parking across the street in the mall. So to be clear, that practice is intended to end with the 9 parking spaces proposed. As you may have seen earlier, right now there's sort of this informal driveway where people can kind of park, and obviously it doesn't suit their needs at this time, but should the proposal be approved, we would have a parking solution of 9 spaces. It's intended to support everyone that is going to work on site, and this practice of parking across the street will no longer happen. And just quickly, I alluded to these 2 other locations. So I just took a quick Google screen view. So on the left side of this image, you see 41 Livingston, which is the subject property we're talking about. Community Living's main office is just on North Service Road, a very short drive away. They have lots of parking there. They have office space in case anyone needs to use it. And in addition, out in Beamsville, on the right here, 7 kilometers away is 4330 Lincoln Avenue, which is another space that Community Living uses as an office that, if necessary, people could use. So those are just 2 points I wanted to hit on because I know these are items that did come up in the last public meeting. And so again, we're proud of this rendering, so that's why I'm closing with it. This is a shot of the building. Some other comments that were proposed is, okay, is this going to be an institutional looking building? No, what we're proposing is effectively a building that looks like a house that folks can live in, that's well integrated into the community, and at least in our opinion is a welcome addition to the neighborhood. And so with that, I'll leave it there. I'm not going to speak too much more on the application, but certainly if there are any questions or comments, I'm here to listen to them, as well as Kathy. If there's any operational considerations, she can answer those as well. And so with that, thank you for listening. I will conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Ryan. I'll open it up to the members of the public, but I don't think there's any here. So what I'll do is open it up to members of council now. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Howe.
Just a quick question. Is it going to be a tear down of the existing structure, or are you going to build around it?
Through your chair, that's correct. So to facilitate this use, we will have to tear down the existing building and replace it with what's proposed.
Councillor DeVoley.
Mayor Jordan, my question for either of you. There are employees who are there throughout the day and evening and night. Yes? No? Can you just expand maybe upon your staffing arrangements at the site in terms of the hours and days that are covered there? And then my question actually leads into how you came up with 9 being the ideal number of parking spots for you.
So the staff will not be there overnight unless there was some sort of a medical concern that someone needed to have someone on site for. But generally speaking, these would be individuals who are considered supported independent living, which means they will have their own apartment and live on their own. We will have an office there so that, with a Murphy bed, so that if there is ever any need for someone comes home maybe after surgery or something and needs some extra supports, we'll be able to stay in the building and if we needed to. But generally speaking, our hours end for supported independent living at about 7 o'clock at night, maybe 8 o'clock at night, depending on appointments or things that individuals need to do. So, and like Ryan was saying earlier, they're generally out and about in the community with the individuals wherever they might be going to appointments or what have you. To be honest with you, I can't answer the second question because I wasn't here at the beginning at the planning. Maybe Ryan remembers, but I joined the agency just a year and a bit ago after the plans had already been made. But I can comment that 9 is a good number. We have 10 staff that can be in and out of the building, and we do have 2 agency vehicles that we leave parked there so that they would be available for people to come into work, grab the agency vehicle and go and take people around on their appointments and such, so that they're not using their own vehicle. So they would be leaving their own vehicle behind and taking the agency vehicle and going off around their day. And then if a few are staying in the building, maybe a visitor comes to see one of the individuals who lives there, it's a good size, a good number for that space.
Ryan, you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just to quickly build on that. So I was involved in the file since the beginning. The 9 spaces really came from how much space we could accommodate for the use. I will note that the building is big because it's fully AODA compliant, which is one of the needs of community living. And just with respect to space, we ran out of it very quickly. The other thing I want to mention, we did have an accessory structure proposed where, if anyone remembers, I can go back to it, which is basically proposed to be green space now. So that sort of limited the 9 space as well. And the final thing, and I think this sort of gets overlooked, is the region asked us for some significant road widenings here. They asked us for 3 meters along the front and a 10 by 10 visibility triangle because there's traffic lights there. So that ate up a lot of space for us as well. So just wanted to provide a little bit of context to what Kathy's saying, because I have been on the file since the beginning. And yeah, 9 spaces is what community living wants on the site, and will meet their needs. So that's why it's proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Korstanji.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just to touch on the parking a little bit further, is the parking going to meet the AODA standards for accessibility?
Yes, Councillor. Thank you. Thank you for the question. So we are seeking a variance to the parking. It does meet AODA. We have architects on file who ensured that. The reason why we need a variance to it is because the bylaw requests a much longer space, whereas AODA only regulates effectively what is the area of the space and the width of it. So in terms of AODA, the space does meet, but for whatever reason, we're asking for a reduction in length because the bylaw specifies more than what AODA is required. So that's why we're requesting the variance. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Kathy and Ryan and Adam, for your presentations. Thank you, everyone, for the participation in the public meeting. The consultants and staff will take back your feedback. Please contact staff at planning@grimsby.ca if you have any additional comments or questions about the proposal after this evening. The public meeting is now closed. Thank you, and everyone have a good evening.